My goodness. It's 2022. Hello. Hi, I'm RJ. I'm with Jonathan. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
Megan is back with us. Hey, Megan.
Hey, guys.
And Brian, of course. Hi, Brian.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. That guy's
Of
here.
course.
You're the only person I think who's been on all of them. You are HFPod. So
My goals have been achieved in early 2022. This is amazing. My New Year's resolution from 2013 finally happened.
Oh man. Thanks
Just
everybody
goes to
for
show,
joining.
Never make a resolution.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for joining. We are going to be talking about this very interesting fish run from Hampton 2003. Jonathan was there, so he's going to give us some on the ground reports.
I was
Sort of.
partially there.
Partially there.
We'll explain what that means later.
We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. We haven't talked for a while. You guys did the recap of the New Year's show, which I wasn't there for. But Megan, can I just hear from you, like your main takeaway from that New Year's show?
I just felt really grateful that they did that for us. They didn't have to. It was such a huge pivot, and so impressed with the whole production team and just the whole team in general, the management team and everybody, and just the humility and courage it takes to perform a fish show for no one. I think that's pretty awesome. And I think there were some incredible moments. I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
I think courage and humility are a great theme to take with us to today's episode.
Yes, I agree. I have big thoughts on that today.
Well, I'd like to build on that as well, which is we all know that they didn't want to do fish shows without audiences. That was something that they came out and said early in pandemic, and then they went ahead and did it anyways. And like you said, Megan, they didn't have to do anything. We would have been disappointed, but most of us would have understood, right? But instead, they played, I thought, a pretty fun show, and it was great.
Really cool. Okay, well, thank you guys for humoring me with that. All right, Brian, should we take a quick ad break and then come back and talk about this delightful run of fish shows from 2003?
Absolutely. We are sponsored here today at HFPod Live by Sunset Lake CBD, our very good friends. They are a farmer-owned business which ships CBD products directly from their farm to your door. For years, Sunset Lake was a Vermont your door, Jonathan. They were a Vermont dairy farm producing milk for Ben and Jerry's ice cream. In 2018, somehow that's 4 years ago now, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD with a product for everyone. You and you and you and everyone out there. They offer pre-rolls, hemp cigars, flowers, as well as tinctures, gummies, and CBD coffee crafted to help with stress, aches, and pains. Sunset Lake CBD saves you money by shipping high-quality CBD products directly from their farm to your door. And I just would like to pause here for a second to describe my experience with Sunset Lake because it's always been wonderful. I had a little pre-roll collection last year, and around this time last year, very, very stressful, very intense time in world history, in American history, in just existing as a human, I guess human history. And I would finish work and I'd take one of those pre-rolls on a nice little walk with me, and it was perfect, man. It set me at ease. It took away all my stress. It didn't give me that like head high that you get with THC. So I was able to come back home, cook dinner, play with my kids, watch the news, do a little bit of work, hang out, all the great things that you can just do. But I felt at ease and I felt stress-free. So thank you, Sunset Lake, for that. Please visit sunsetlakecbd.com. Use promo code HFPod for 20% off your purchases. Once again, that is sunsetlakecbd.com, promo code HFPod.
And RJ's out. You just scared him off. He's
That's
like, I can't
it.
talk about these shows. That's it.
He's like,
I
I'm
mean,
going to get some of those pre-rolls.
I would I would argue that he decided to go and just order those pre-rolls immediately.
Yeah.
He was like,
Yeah,
He was
you
so
can
the
leave
motivated.
the
show.
camera on, RJ, while you go to the
It
sunsetlakecbd.com.
was just too good. It was too good. I just had to. I couldn't even pick up from there. Brian, thank you for that. Okay, guys, we're going to talk about Hampton 2003. We've had a spirited exchange this afternoon, and we're going to continue that here. I guess everyone knows where those Hampton 03 shows started, which was the night before at MSG, and I was reminded of the excitement that there was in the air. I guess just around the message boards that existed in those days and the conversations that people were having about fish being back. And I think that MSG show was a good welcome back. And then coming to these Hampton shows, I never ever go back to these shows. And I guess now I kind of remember why, but I think there are some things in here that are worth going back to. But so
It's
fish
good
comes
stuff,
back
man.
after what 18 months or so, and they're back, and man, this coming back to Hampton, they're clearly excited to be there. 3 shows, but the context of these shows is just I don't know. I feel like Jonathan, you were there, but did it feel like you knew what to those shows, or did it feel like a new era of? Did it feel like going back to fish, or like it was like a new thing?
Yeah, both. Like we were ready to just come. So first of all, to be clear, I was only at one of these 3 shows. We left my daughter with the in-laws and bolted down for one night. It was great, and but for the excitement was huge. The levels were high. Tickets were hard to get. Also weird with the opening the run at MSG on New Year's and then coming down here for 3 to Hampton for 3. That was a little odd. Tickets were tough. I had tickets for the wrong night. I got met up with a buddy and swapped to get our tickets for night 2 is what I went to. So I won't jump ahead to that. But I felt like, yeah, I don't even know. I think our expectations supplant the reality, and even in my memory, it's not clear what it was like. I just remember being so excited to have fish back. I had plenty to do in the meantime, but I was really glad that here we're seeing fish again. Fuck yeah! And how could this be entirely bad? And it wasn't.
Brian, you started seeing shows around this time. What was your intro to these shows? What do you remember about these shows coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I remember kind of like what Jonathan was saying. There was just so much excitement around the return at that point in time. These are 2 extremely iconic venues. Doing kind of the flipped New Year's run gave it a different feel for a lot of fans. Opening on New Year's Eve and then having these 3 shows afterwards spill into 2003. And knowing I at the time they had announced the winter tour. I don't believe they had announced summer tour at this point, but we knew we were getting a full fish tour after this. So going into it, it had this, for someone like myself, I was really excited because I was going to be able to watch a set list roll in for the very first time of new fish shows and new fish songs and old fish songs and see where things were placed and really experience the vibe of that for the first time. We're talking 2001. There aren't really a lot of videos online. Really your experience is listening to tapes and the live fish experience, those live, the live fish series. So like actually seeing a new show happen and understand how they're going to communicate in this new era was really exciting for me. Without jumping too far ahead, I mean, I do remember once the show started, it was that first moment of understanding part of being a fish fan is this really fascinating dichotomy of being so excited and so happy and so critical all at the same time. And I felt like these 4 shows, especially the Hampton shows, like people were really nice on New Year's Eve when it was happening, but these 3 Hampton shows were such a great intro to the discourse and the community and how to communicate about fish in real time.
Discourse and discord in the kitchen.
A lot of everything. Megan, what were your memories?
Yeah, it was an interesting time for me. 2.0 is the only era I've never seen Fish, and I didn't see any shows in 2.0. I was really, I know,
It's
I was
fine. You didn't
really
miss much, really. Just a few long,
removed.
weird jams and a lot of flows. That's all.
Yeah, but it was cool to listen back though, because I've never listened to these shows actually. So it was really cool to listen back to them. I think at this point in my life, I was like working 2 jobs, trying to make it as an actress in New York City. I was kind of embarrassed of a lot of my life choices in the past when I was like super into Fish and I was trying to like distance myself from them. And I really separated myself
Look
from the
where that got
music. I know. And here I am back obsessed. Yeah.
That is an
been cool.
episode we're going to do in a couple of months. At what point were
Yes.
you embarrassed of your previous life as a Fish fan, and how did you make
Okay, good.
how did you make peace with it? Because I got it too, but go on.
You did
Never.
too?
I did too. Yeah.
Jonathan, you're just more enlightened than we are.
No,
Yeah.
I actually have literally lived 2 lives so simultaneously. So I'll have something for that episode. I promise.
Okay, good.
RJ, what were your memories of this overall run?
Oh man, I don't have many. I mean, I feel the same, similarly to what Megan said. I was not going to the shows. I was not really even paying that close attention at the time, which is I don't know. Maybe that's more common than I think. But I was definitely excited to listen to them. This was, as most people probably know, the first time that Fish shows were available to listen to on the internet afterwards, right? And regularly webcasted. Not all the time, but there were webcasts. So we were able to start listening to these shows, and it was so that was interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was I identify with what you're saying, Megan, in that I was doing like my life, and it seemed to not be really related to Fish. Although I did go to the Greensboro show a month, 2 months later.
Nice.
And that was pretty cool. Then I was like, all right, I should go see more shows. But yeah, I don't know. I guess a lot of us just sort of like went and did different things when we weren't sure if they were coming back or not. But I was also like, I don't know, a lot of us are in the same age range, but I was like 22 or 23. And so I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. I was like just trying to like work a job and go out every night and like stay alive, I wasn't really paying attention to much else.
Trying to pay rent.
Yeah, exactly. That was a huge goal, to pay rent. But I do remember like these shows being, I have a weird relationship with 2.0 musically. And so I think we need to talk about that. Not in my perspective, but mostly Brian, your perspective, because I know you love this year and a half of music. And going back, it's interesting to me there are some moments that I appreciated for sure, but I feel like in general, it's hard to, some of it's a slog to get through, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting period. And like you hear it as we get into it, like you hear a lot of the inherent challenges that are going to kind of be daunting to get through for the period in time. A lot of their newer songs are very serious, are very somber. And if they want to showcase them, they're going to completely change the dynamic of an overall show. Trey, notably, and you can hear it from the very start of the New Year's Eve show, and then it continues into this show, has a completely new guitar tone and a completely new approach to playing all of these songs that just 18 months earlier sounded like Fish songs. The band has changed their arrangement on stage. They look more than ever like just a standard rock band with the drummer in back on a raised platform, and Trey and Mike kind of in the positions you would expect a guitarist and bassist to be in. And also and I think most interestingly, this is the midlife crisis period. I'm right around the age of where Fish was at this point, which is kind of weird to me. And, seeing the questions that they had about the next step in their lives, and also about where they are and what does it mean of what they've been doing for the last 20 years. And does it mean anything? Has it just been this fun party thing that they've carried with them since they were 18? Or is it something that actually has longevity and actually, requires them to think deeper about it. You can see that challenge going on both on stage as well as off stage. And I think part of that informs why this would end in a muddy field some 18 months later.
Yeah, I mean, the guitar thing is a big thing out front for the audience, right? We're hearing Trey, and it just doesn't sound the same. These new songs, and we'll get into some of them, I think, touch on them at least, are, well, there's an array, right? And some are not as fun as others. Some are amazing, but they don't have a place yet in a set, or they don't quite hang together with the rest of what they're doing. But yeah, I think I'm with RJ on 2.0 in general, which is to say there is good stuff, but I could make a really kick-ass playlist, but there's a lot of stuff that I would skip. That said, listening to these three shows, speaking kind of overall, there's probably more in these three shows than I would have guessed going into this re-listen. And I'm not just saying that because I've actually only been listening to my new Jerry Garcia Band LP box set exclusively for the past month. But no, I'm kidding. I really did listen. And, there's good stuff.
You have to be patient, I think, when you're listening to this stuff. Like, you have to be willing to sit through
and just let it happen.
the flubs and not. I mean, I think to me it was really jarring just because it makes me realize how good Fish is right now. Because I hear this and I'm like, whoa, they just don't make mistakes like that right now, and which is pretty incredible. And also thinking about how when they came back from this unintended break during COVID, how incredible they sounded right away, which is pretty amazing. Just shows kind of where they are and how mature they are and how much they've been practicing. And so it was interesting to contrast that to this break and how they didn't sound that way to me.
Yeah. I think you're right that there's more here than I would have expected. I think maybe this is a common feeling, but I have like such a emotional relationship with this music that, like, in contrast to the Grateful Dead, like the eras of Grateful Dead that I enjoy most don't really have much to do with where Jerry was as a person or as where he was within his journey and struggle with addiction. Like, I just like the eras that I like. With Fish, it's like I can hear it. I can like feel it when I'm listening to these 2.0 shows. Like, it's
Totally.
and that's weird because and Brian, it's interesting that you can, like, it's admirable to me that you can like put that aside and enjoy the music for the music, because I find it hard to separate those things. But this was like a celebration, I think, coming from the start, right? Like the Chalk Dust Bathtub Gin combo at the beginning of the first show was great and high energy, and it sounded like they were having
outstanding.
fun.
I think that's like, you hear that and you're like, we're in for some stuff right here. I thought those two, and then It's Ice is fine and good, but Back on the Train right after that is also really good. It's like a type 1 version or whatever, but it's really solid.
Yeah, the big moments for me in this first set are, and it's where you hear kind of the hint of almost what could have been, is Chalk Dust Bathtub Gin to open up the run is a pretty bold statement, and it's a 1-2 punch that you would see a lot in 2009 and 2010, because both songs are going to deliver almost immediately to the fan base. And here we hear the band figure out, like, they fall almost immediately into a type 2 jam in Chalk Dust Torture, which back in 2003, early 2003, is incredibly rare. This is not what we anticipate from Chalk Dust Torture. So we're suddenly in a new sound, in a new era. Bathtub Gin goes 18 minutes and is, just like cascading hose. It's just this, like, it's this glorious moment where Trey is fully connected. The rest of the set, I think you start to hear, where the highs of the era are going to be, but also where the challenges of the era are going to be. Round Room, it's its debut. We get all the Round Room debuts here during the show. It fades out into this kind of noise jam, which to me speaks to the highs of this era, where every single song could fade into some sort of a jam that would showcase this improvisational communication and connection that the band had at this time, that if nothing else, that had not left them since 1.0. But then, your Stash, your Character Zero, these two songs that are such staples of their early era, are kind of shells of themselves. Character Zero especially is like the first moment where I heard it and I felt like, I think this band is actually tired. Like, to RJ's point, to Megan's point, this is supposed to be a celebration, but I think they're actually a little tired going into this and aren't fully ready to re-embrace who Fish is.
Well, you definitely hear that in the Stash. As somebody who
You are a
hyper-focuses
Stash
and,
fiend.
it's one of the ways I like to take the temperature of the band is
Totally.
whenever they play Stash,
Yeah.
and they really just barely play Stash.
That's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. It's a rare
I
thing to
actually
say.
think the first set too is a little bit better than the second set. I mean, there are some really good moments, but to me, that first set is stronger. The second set to me was a little bit harder to listen to.
I'd almost say there's like an equal number of highlights, but they spread them out. So
Yeah,
46
yeah.
Days kicks ass.
Yeah, that's really
First set
good.
Pretty
played,
cool.
It's
Mhm.
long, it's jammed, it's really good. Simple is fine, doesn't really go anywhere special. It's just simple. Thunderhead is better than I remember it in my brain. Thunderhead is an interesting song that they probably should
I love it.
learn to play again. And I think the Antelope actually is kind of kick-ass. I like this.
It is.
Definitely loose. It's definitely loose.
Yeah, but I mean, like, gets intense
Mhm.
in the good, in a good way.
It's interesting to me that like 46 Days in this setting is this slow, methodical, psychedelic song. And it would kind of remain that way throughout much of 2.0. There's a really long version, nearly 40 minutes from It later in the summer. And both of them kind of
was
had the
okay.
same vibe, where they just like, they approach it as this like 5 a.m. blues number where they know the riff, they know how to play it, but like they're not in a hurry. And you have to go to like 2010 Fish to actually hear them fully realizing the bar room rock potential for the song. So it's kind of a song that like starts one place on the studio album, ends up another place in the live performances, is this incredible jam vehicle, and then becomes kind of a fully realized song 7 or 8 years later, which is interesting about a lot of these 2.0 songs. Some of them, Thunderhead, have been forgotten about. I am a Thunderhead stan. I wish that they would bring it back. It is a gorgeous ballad. I think it would fit perfectly coming out of an extended jam in any 3.0, 4.0 Fish show. Perhaps the meaning of the lyrics are a little bit too intense for the band. Who knows? But I think it fits really nicely here. But it is, to Megan's point, kind of where you get this disjointed effect in the second set in 2.0. And you see this a lot in 2.0. My Friend, Limb by Limb, Thunderhead are very methodical songs to play midway through a second set. And a lot of the complaints you'll hear about this era tend to do with the energy because of song selections like this.
Yeah.
If they can take the time to relearn Time Turns Elastic, they could take the time to relearn.
It's a little bit easier.
They, I just think like
It's a
them being tired.
number.
It is. We can. This is our official lobby for that, for Brian's wish for them to bring it back. Just on the point of them being tired. I mean, you guys listened to Live Again, and Trey talked about coming back at MSG. I guess 2 nights before this, and how like everything that they wanted to leave behind at the end of 2000 like was back immediately. And there was a lot that he said that didn't make it into that episode, but I think it was pretty intense like right away. So they probably, I assume they just had the whole, I mean, I think he said that hundreds of people were backstage again, and people were, so I assume that starting with the 2 nights before this, they just started having like another big party that kind of carried on to Hampton. And after a couple nights, like I would be tired too. So I think that all seems really like evident in the music.
I think it's an
RJ would
interesting
be
thought of
tired.
like, everyone was showing up to these shows, both backstage and front of house, thrilled that Fish was back. And everyone is on like another level waiting for Fish to come back. And I'm sure that they were excited as well, but I'm sure when like it was harder to become Fish again, like that exhaustion set in. And if there's all these expectations around them, but for them, they're going through the motions of it. I don't know. It's challenging, and maybe it's a good segue into the second show of the run, because this seems to me to be the show where they really try to play an all caps Fish show, and the challenges of the era seem to overtake them.
So I'd like to set a little bit. So I was at this one, so I'll set the stage
Yes.
just a tiny bit. So we got there. I had to meet a friend in a hotel room to swap some tickets, and got the kind of report on the night before, and it was basically things are back exactly as they were, like, and as far as the audience and the scene, if you will, and and I got the report. Don't park over by the whatever Walmart or whatever was right over nearby at that time, because a bunch of people got towed, which caused us to predict correctly that they would play Contact, and also that kind of vibe and those kinds of things kind of feed into what you hear in Makasupa, and just the Hampton experience writ large was in full swing. It's not quite like that these days, I swear. But back then, man, it was heavy. And so they came out. They opened with Tweezer, and it's kind of cool, right? I mean, you guys like this Tweezer? I like this Tweezer. I had a lot of fun with this.
It's like
show,
slower tempoed, kind of like a
2.0
loose feeling to
Tweezers.
it.
Yeah, this ain't 1991.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
When they
would
come out,
love to like. Go ahead, RJ.
I was just gonna say, when you come out and you open up a Tweezer, you're like really putting it out there, and like
Mhm.
making
Yes.
a statement. And I think it's good. It's a good Tweezer, but it's also like, yeah, just like you said, Brian, it kind of continues the theme. Sorry, Megan.
I was just gonna say, I think the jam is better than the composed section, which I think is, I
Pretty
felt
much
like true
2.0.
of a lot of these songs. Yeah, I was just like, oh, I'd rather listen to this part. The other part makes me feel uncomfortable. But I would love to know more about like Trey's guitar tone. Like, it's uncompressed. What does that mean? And maybe I should know this, but it's like he's doing something different with his tone.
We don't have the right guy on here. I mean, basically, I think the complaint from the pedantic Fish fans is that Trey stopped using the Ross compressor, therefore his sound was all wrong, and it was just different.
Mhm.
A
Yeah.
compressor, effectively, and the simple version of that is that it takes all of the sounds and raises them to a similar floor, so he could play really nice, quiet notes, and it'll raise them up to be kind of as
Mhm.
loud as the loud notes. Also, increases the sustain. Because it keeps, instead of the sound trailing off, it stays louder. But that's the super light version of it. Somebody else could probably do
That's
better.
all I want. I can't handle anything deeper than
Go to
that. But yeah, I don't.
TreysGuitarRick.com for
Yeah,
the real
exactly.
details,
Yeah, I don't love it. It sounded not as rich, and it just made me want his regular
different.
tone. Yeah, it's different.
Especially
Yeah, I mean-
as compared to what we're hearing these days. Like
Yeah.
the new 4.0 tone is so dope.
Yeah,
And
it's gorgeous.
it has something more in common with the 1.0 tone than
Yeah.
this.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is, I mean, when you're listening to a 2.0 jam or a 2.0 show just based off of Trey's tone, any standard version of a song played, one of the things that's going to take away from it potentially is the fact that this tone is so overbearing. So in Divided Sky, in Golgi Apparatus, in Harry Hood, in all the Reba, all the classic Fish songs, you're going to hear this
Mhm.
tone along with a tweezer like this, where this tone to me fits this tweezer and it fits the vibe of this overall jam. I think
You would
One-
say that.
one critique I would make though is it's strange. 2.0 is not really the strongest era for tweezer. You have Nassau, 228. You have a pretty strong version from Brooklyn 2004. Beyond that, though, most tweezers are like this tweezer, where it's a pretty straight ahead rock peak jam right around 12 to 14 minutes that doesn't really lift off into kind of that next phase that you anticipate with tweezer, where it kind of goes out into the unknown. You get it. I mean, Nassau, Chicago has a very good version, but tons of tweezers throughout 2.0 don't actually live up to the jamming expectation of 2.0. And so it's always been a weird kind of footnote to the era to me is that the jamming song, like Fish's jam vehicle, never ends up being, you know, like it never fulfills kind of the expectation that you get from other eras.
That's why we have Piper in 2003. It's fine.
Very good point.
Is it?
Go ahead, RJ.
Well, I was just going to say, is it fair to say that the highlight of the show is the Pebbles and Marbles? Is that a fair assessment?
That's where I was going.
Okay.
We have to talk about the song that follows, but let's spend an hour on Pebbles and Marbles. After this show, for weeks and weeks after this show, I listened to this Pebbles and Marbles over and over again, like almost exclusively. Like I probably listened to the show 2 or 3 times or whatever in the weeks that followed, but I listened to the Pebbles and Marbles like 5-6 times in a row a day. Like,
I love that
the
when
song.
that happens.
This version of it just hit me like a lightning bolt. It was amazing in the room for me. I don't know what anybody else felt. I can't say. I daren't guess, and I haven't looked it up. But it's important to me. It came out of followed a, I thought, competent foam. But it was just, otherwise it's completely pulls out from the set and is just a completely different moment than the rest of the set.
Yeah, Pebbles is a highlight throughout the entire Hampton and Winter Tour part of 2.0. They wouldn't play it as much over the summer for some reason, but I would argue that every Pebbles that was played throughout this early part of 2.0 is worth hearing. They just, you could tell that they were feeling this song completely from the jump.
I mean, what I say in our text thread, this debut basically justifies the entire run. Yeah,
he did say that. And then the You Enjoy Myself is like, to me, the kind of peak of the everything we've been talking about, in that it's so
the most
sad
2.0 moment of 2.0.
It makes me feel so sad.
It's so sad.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like a foreshadowing of Coventry, and then they restarted, and the second run through is not much better than the first.
No.
They just
he hits a couple bits that he just he didn't hit the first time, but he misses as many others, and then the jam in it, everything a little bit further into the song after the extraordinarily tricky composed parts in the beginning are fun and good, kind of like that tweezer, right, Meg?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Yeah, I remember that moment in the room, and I can tell you that you couldn't really hear the flubs the first time through because the room was so loud, so much screaming. Oh, they're playing You Enjoy Myself.
Yeah.
Wait, he stopped. What's he saying? It was kind of like that. And then the second time when they restarted, so now we're listening. Oh. Okay,
now we're really listening to.
I hear what he's talking about. Oh man!
For someone who doesn't love vocal jams, this vocal jam's pretty okay.
As
George
someone who likes
Takei.
vocal jams, I like this one, but the
yeah,
Greensboro
it's
one
not
is better.
that bad.
Oh,
I think
I'm trying to be nice.
Two quick thoughts about the You Enjoy Myself. One, for anyone who was online during 2.0, this was referenced every time something bad happened. If they played a bad show, if they screwed up a song in a future performance, when Trey announced that they were breaking up, throughout all of Coventry, this was consistently reminded of this, like, remember They did screw up You Enjoy Myself in the third show back. The other thing I want to say is often forgotten, but it's true. Hampton 09, they play You Enjoy Myself, and they screw it up again. And Trey pauses and said, "It meant so much to me to practice this, and I'm so sorry that we did it again, but we need to restart this song again."
Yeah, no, that they did that on purpose. They were fucking with us. It was great.
So in the second set, there's a couple
Having been at both, I can s-
there's a couple good jams. There's the Wolfmans, I think, is a pretty solid highlight of the
Yeah.
second set of the second night. The Makasupa, well, we can talk about the Wolfmans, but Makasupa was just like reminded me again of the
fun.
kind of state of mind that they were probably in, and seemed like they like those are all things that like he was mentioning, the same kind of things that everyone else was doing, like waking up at 3 p.m. and smoking joints and going to Waffle
Looking
House. or
fatties.
whatever.
Waffle House.
Yeah, exactly.
Classy.
This Wolfman's, I recall, coming out of the run was the big highlight, at least in the corner of the internet that I was on. That this was where people felt like both. And I went back and I was reading just like thoughts about like live thoughts about this. I'll spare you them all. But the one takeaway I had was people kept focusing on energy and this chase of energy. And Possum kept coming up as this huge highlight. And Wolfman's kept coming up as this huge highlight. And the reason for them was specifically that was when that energy that you used to feel at a fish show. And even if you go back to summer 2000, I think almost immediately of the Bathtub Gin from Homedale, 628 2000. It's one of the highest peaks I've ever heard of a fish jam. And that is not the band that shows up in Madison Square Garden or Hampton. They're much hazier in some cases. So you hear this Wolfman's, you hear the Possum later in the second set, and it's like, okay, 1.0 high energy fish is back. And that's what people brought with them going, with the 5-6 week wait until the winter, the winter tour.
We were looking for that. The same thing happened in 2009. We went into the show looking to hear what flavor of fish band was going to be present. In 2003, we hadn't been burned as many times. We hadn't put our hand up on the stove quite often enough to know that sometimes you just wait. But in 2009, we still were looking for the same thing. It's like, they didn't really jam. They had a lot of songs we wanted to play, but this part was really good. We walked away from there doing the same thing. And I think the thing that I took away from the second set is not only is Wolfman's jamming it's there, but the Makasupa shows that the band still has their sense of humor, and Possum shows that too. And the playfulness, switching the instruments for the ending and all that, and that was fun. It was not virtuosic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a good. That's a nice way to put it. I think that was nice.
And Contact again had kind of the fun, and again we predicted that.
That's like a
beforehand.
cool funky jam at the end too of that Contact. I like that.
I just want to say that. I just want to say one thing, just which is that Trey also mentions Hooters in Makasupa, and one of the only Hooters I've ever been to in my life is Hampton in 1998 when I watched the Ohio State-Michigan football game at that Hooters, and it was so packed with fish fans. I think it's like that whole area is just such a wasteland. There's like not really anything to do, and there's nowhere
Hampton,
really to.
Virginia.
And if the Hampton Travel Board is listening, we're happy to help you get the word out otherwise, but it's just like it's such a weird place to go for a run of shows. Like you stay in a hotel near there, and you just like you have to go to one of the places he mentioned in Makasupa, because that's like all there really is.
That's why it's like the mothership,
car,
right? It's like dropped in the queue.
30 minutes to get some good barbecue. You just get away from there. It's
True. Okay, sorry. That was not totally on topic. Brian,
I want to do like Jonathan's Hampton run. I want Jonathan to like take us under his wing and like take us to Hampton the way you would do it.
I think we did a pretty good one in 2018, didn't we, RJ?
We did. We did.
Yeah.
Jonathan
I
is
want on
great
that
to go
next
to.
field trip.
You should go to shows with Jonathan because he has a very he has a very relaxed way of doing Fish shows. You
Unless
Seen
prioritize
go
one
on
show
time.
with him, and it was one of my favorite shows ever. So I concur here. Yes.
He's a
you
pro.
prioritize rest. You prioritize like hanging out with your
Mm.
friends. You don't like, I feel like you approach it in the right way.
Thank you.
So that's the Jonathan section of the show.
Should we move on to the final night of the show here?
I didn't go, so it
1403.
didn't happen.
It didn't happen. This is the first show of Fish 2.0 to me that just feels like a Fish show. Like there's no MSG's got the obvious buildup. It's the return. 1-2 has it's the second show, the first show of this Hampton run. 1-3 has these big attempts at like huge set listing moments that, really try to shock and awe the listener and then the fans into, getting back to that experience of what Fish really felt like in 1.0. This is kind of just a show. There's great songs throughout the first set here. The second set feels really fluid, and it feels like the most cohesive segment of music that they have played thus far in the 2.0 era. But the first set, Llama, Boogie On, Rogue, Maze, Anything But Me, Yamar, I mean, it's just like, it's songs, and it's just kind of them settling back in, and it feels low stakes in a way that I kind of feel like they and the audience probably needed. Just, we're going to another Fish show is kind of the vibe I get.
I'm going to take you up and embrace fully this. This is the first show of 2.0. Set 1 has one song that I like to listen to, and and I'm standing by that. It's really, I like the split open and melt on this. Actually, Roger is kind of tasty too, but the split open and melt I actually like in this. The rest of it I don't need.
Skip.
Megan,
Is that
you had some highlights.
Please.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
haven't
I
said
think
anything
I don't.
about any of this. So you guys have more that to say than I do. Go ahead, Megan. Sorry.
I mean, I'm gonna have a little bit of an unpopular opinion potentially, but I don't like Rogue very much, that song, and I know that that's probably gonna like
Right.
upset a lot of
It's
people.
enough.
You
Can
know,
you just pull a plug on her?
but
and-
I just
Wow.
I love the music part of it. I don't like the lyrical part of it. I just feel like I don't love it. But this version is actually good. I think Trey has like a really specially inspired solo in the middle. Paige sounds really great. I think this is really nice. There's some like beautiful, delicate playing in there. This is actually a really nice version of the song. So I like that. And it made me actually start to rethink my opinion on the song. So
Wow.
that was, yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that Brian didn't listen to me and cut you out of the show as soon as you said that about the first thoughts about
I
Rogue
knew you weren't
and-
going to like it, but we
and-
can't all
and you
have
know
the
what?
same opinions.
That's true, because that would be boring. But also, I liked your overall thoughtfulness on this one, and I think we have to keep her around, Brian.
Thank you, Jonathan.
This is one of 4 Rogers that are played throughout 2.0. They would play it in Worcester later in the
Wow.
winter tour, and then Alpine Valley and Vegas 04, which we will be covering in April, I think. Right? We have that on the schedule, Vegas
I think I'm
04. If we
sick
listen
that
to
day.
Hampton 03, we can do it.
Oh my God.
We do now.
my God.
Not this. That is not the same.
I don't think I
thing.
can
That is
do
not
it.
a one-to-one relationship.
I can't. RJ
No,
can do it.
This is
I was there.
a
It was too
very.
painful.
I'm
You were
sick
there
that day,
too.
Whatever.
I drove down to Vegas from college thinking I'm going to see my island tour. These are future 2.0 stories, and I did not see
That's
my
awesome.
island tour.
Nope.
But to
It's a
Megan's
different
point,
island.
very different. Fishnet notes that this is an outstanding version which combines exceptional Trey soloing, strong Page Trey back and forth, and excellent dynamics, modulation driven by Fish and Mike. This one will make you weep with joy. I think that
I
there's
didn't
some
weep.
accuracy to that.
I didn't weep, but it was nice.
It was
Good
nice.
version.
Eventually.
I don't know
We're
who
gonna
does.
add an asterisk here. Did
I
not
just
weep.
want to know. I can find out. I want to know who did these jam chart notes from 2.0 because they're a little too enthusiastic for me. Like usually I read them and like after I listen to
It-
something, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm
I
like,
think it
Guilty.
was Wade, RJ. I think they got Wade to do it.
It was Brian.
yeah, right.
Everything was
ma-
awesome.
the maze is pretty cool though. When I was listening to the maze, I was realizing that they were just excited to be playing. You know, like in the kind of Paige and Trey sections, they were both, I think, just like going at it with a lot of enthusiasm, which is cool. But
I think I was
but
grooving on this maze when I was listening to it. I didn't.
yeah,
Yeah, it's intense. It's worth a listen.
Megan, what is the highlight of the show from your perspective?
I mean, I think the Mike's groove. I really like the Mike song "Mountains in the Mist." I mean, it's no hydrogen, Jonathan, but I still think it's pretty in between there. And there's like this cool, interesting jam out of Mike's song. It's really different, and it kind of lands really well into "Mountains in the Mist." And there's just that song is so beautiful, and I think sounded really meaningful when they were singing it. There were so many moments in these shows overall that there were certain lines that obviously just really hit hard with them and with the crowd. And I kept thinking about that when I was listening to it, which was really kind of amazing. And then an awesome week of Pog. I think, and I think landing in What's the Use is great. I mean, I think this week of Pog's really good.
I fully agree. Actually, I think that tucking a little hydrogen in there wouldn't hurt, but otherwise, it's a great Mike's groove, and the Weekapog jam is really outstanding. It gets It's not long, but it starts to get a little bit demented, which kind of presages the What's the Use, and I dig that. I'm here for that.
Yeah, that to me is the highlight of the run, that whole section, but it's just my opinion.
One thing that you said that I think is really resonant is there are lines that seem to hit the band throughout the performance. And I think that is part of kind of the ongoing challenge of this era, is that they come out of songs like Anything But Me or Mountains in the Mist, which is where the band is at personally, professionally at this point in time. I mean, I remember when they play Anything But Me at Coventry, Trey almost lost it. And it's like the fourth song of Coventry. And these ballads that they've written that they're bringing with them now are really speaking to where they're at in life. And that was like a new concept and a new idea to Fish at the time. It's something we almost anticipate and expect now when they play Joy or they play Miss You. It's this sense of like, okay, we've had a really good segment of music. Now we're going to be reflective because life has happened to all of us. There was so much escapism in Fish music prior to this, and Round Room is kind of one of the first records that you really hear these, kind of deeper, more complex emotions as they're going through life. And so you hear that mixed in with a Mike's groove or following a crazy maze, and it just totally changes the dynamics of a show for good and, for good and bad in some cases. But I agree with you. I really like this week of Pog. The week of Pog, What's the Use, Disease, Fast Enough for You, 2001. That closing segment does such a cool job of balancing kind of distorted jamming with contemplative, slower songs that just, again, fit where the band is at right now.
The tempo drop into Fast Enough for You is so nice. And welcome, strangely. I know a lot of people will argue against a ballad that late in a show, and I won't listen to them.
If it's fast enough for you, yes, please.
Yeah.
Play that at every show, please.
Play that at every show, please.
Yeah.
And then Antics to end 2001. Fun. And then the show's over, and we don't have to listen to anything else after that, right?
I have something to say about 2001, but RJ, what are your thoughts
Please.
on this set?
I'm just glad that they got a month before the winter tour started after this. That was my main takeaway. It was like,
so they could warm up for BB King, right?
We'll get to that, I hope. No, but I mean, like if this winter tour had continued on through January, like it might have ended. Like I don't know if they could have like just with rest and travel and like the scene that we know was happening. It's hard to imagine like 20 dates happening after this and it being anything less than like a complete disaster, because it does sound pretty different in February, I think, when they come back.
Yeah,
Um,
February, they have some really good shows in February.
Isn't
Yeah.
that when they came back and started to establish the rules that kind of got them through the first portion
Yeah.
of
Mm.
the like well into the summer? I don't know how far along those carried, but
I think it got him through the
that's
summer. I think that it was
yeah.
abandoned around the 20th anniversary, but we had a question about that, and I think some of it is speculation, but I think that what we do know is that to RJ's point earlier, the return prompted a celebration which spilled over into the stage in a way that was not conducive for a tight rock show. Leave it at that. And when they came back for a full tour 6 weeks later, I think that there was a clear understanding that we simply cannot do that again. That can't be a part
Mhm.
of all this. And so you hear almost from the start, I mean, I don't want to bore our audience, but like we could go through show by show of that winter tour and really showcase, I know we're not going to, and
Bore
really,
your
really
podcasters.
showcase some some consistent highlights that lead up to that Greensboro show that RJ saw, which is a very classic high energy fish show that doesn't require, I mean, there's jamming in it, but it doesn't require the jamming to get it over the finish line. The summer tour that would follow, you hear new material that comes in, you hear a band that is really creative, and it all leads up to this incredible week of fish from Burgettstown through it. When they would come back later in the year, the challenges of this run would reemerge almost in full. And especially while Miami has highlights, Miami is a just insane mess. And that
We covered
spills
that
over into 2004.
last month, I think. And
Yeah.
it was yeah, and I enjoyed some of the summer. I had a blast at it. I was at the Greensboro show. That was great. Inarguably, there's some definite other high points on that winter tour and in the summer. And then I was done for the year because we had a kid on the day before the anniversary show on December 1st. So,
Mhm.
yay.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been 18 years now.
Well, it's still,
But
it's never too
Troy,
late.
You're in under that 20-year wire, so good job.
We just made it.
Also, can I just ask a question? Do you guys feel like, going back to this, that the whole band was kind of out of sync? Because I felt like a lot of it sounded like everyone besides Trey was actually like pretty well dialed in terms of practice and like playing. It seems like Trey was kind of shouldering the burden of everything, but I don't know. Curious what you guys think about that.
I think one thing that is said regularly, but it's often overlooked when talking about the slop of 2.0 and kind of the overall sound, is it's one of the strongest eras for Fishman. And you point to any great jam like today, John Fishman is all over it. And the summer tour in particular is some of the greatest John Fishman that you will ever hear. And yeah, he came back fully ready to play again.
Partying does not stop John Fishman.
Nothing stops John Fishman.
Exactly. He is a drumming machine. The only thing that stops John Fishman is getting lost on the mountain. And then eventually he'll show up and play. I think that overall they're all well rehearsed. I just don't think that Trey, and at times, I think that they do fall out of sync collectively. I don't think that Trey owns all of it, but because he's out front, it's so much more apparent when he misses. When Paige misses something, you don't pick up on it as easily unless but Trey is like, he's right there and you can't miss it. And that's a challenge for him. And, despite his drum kits and keyboards and things he's done to try to move out of that center point, he's there and always will be.
What are your kind of takeaways from this, listening back to this run?
I was going to say something about it, but like the end of 2001, when Trey talks about the gratitude that the band feels and how happy they feel to be back is really telling, because you don't really hear that throughout 1.0. And it kind of speaks to a lot of the themes that I've talked about through this is, I think the band at this point in time, like, they were almost cautious of like, if we come back, is everybody going to be there? And everybody's there. And I think that they recognized throughout this final show, like, this is going to be a little bit harder than we expected. We can't just pick up our gear and start playing and be Fish again. And so the fact that everyone is still there by the final night, I think it has to be, a really special moment for them. So that just overall vibe that's in every song that I hear in this, that vibe carries them through 2.0 in a lot of cases.
I mean, I think that the courage and the humility, like I was saying before, to come on stage when you were you basically conquered the world, right? Like, you've reached this huge high point. You left the end of 1.0 playing this insane show in Big Cypress. And even your last shows of 1.0 are amazing in Shoreline. Like, they're great. And you leave on this high note and then you come back and you're not where you were then. That's really hard. And you're not only doing that just with yourselves, you're doing it in front of this huge audience that listens really carefully. And I think just the courage and the humility that takes is just enormous, and I have deep respect for it. And I also think that my takeaway from 2.0 in general, at least especially in the beginning, is that they are attempting not to just look back. They are attempting to try new things and, try new guitar tones and try new types of jamming, which I think is awesome, and why Fish is who they are. Because your instinct would be to go back and just play what you've done in the past that's done really well, right? Like, let's just play like this year that was so amazing. So I think it really speaks to who they are as a band and how they're always trying new things and trying to, look forward.
Absolutely, that's a great point. They were looking forward, but I think maybe a little foggy. It wasn't as easy maybe as they thought it would be. Just like you said, I went back to listen to these shows, and I had a lot of fun listening to them. Even the parts that aren't up to standards, up to Fish's standards. I think I don't think it's fair for me to have my own standards, even though I do, because I'm a human. But they knew when they weren't always up to their own standard, but they kept pushing, and they definitely improved after these shows. But I don't think they're all bad. I was particularly pleased with the one that I'd seen, and played some of it for my wife today. Remember that? She's like, "Yeah, this was crazy. This was fun," and so I have great memories tied to it as well. So yeah, not so bad. Not so bad.
There's never a bad Fish show when you're there, I don't think.
Well,
maybe
wait till we get to Vegas 04.
Vegas episode, yeah.
Okay,
Vegas.
Vegas.
We weren't going to talk about that.
It's a loaded statement.
Yeah,
True.
but generally, I agree for sure.
Yes.
I can only think of like
Certainly
two
a lot
exceptions.
easier to have fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Next week on HF Pod, our worst live Fish shows. No.
That would
I can
actually
tell you all about
that'd be
missing the
fun.
Tweezer Reprise opener on 6/19/2010. It's a feeling I've never forgotten. But anyway.
Oh, now that I know about it, I'll make sure you never forget.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Intellectually.
This is, but partially, I mean,
Years
throughout
of
the whole
therapy have not gotten it away. So.
throughout the whole history of HF Pod, part of the reason we like to do these is because I think almost always we come away thinking like this was actually better than I imagined it, or there's other things to revisit more than I expected. Listening to these shows make me excited to go to some February 03 shows to hear like the difference and the evolution, because I think in the past I would just skip to a February show that I know is good. So setting in this context is helpful as a listener. So hope people listening and watching go back to some of these 03 shows. Next week, in reality, we are going to talk about Mexico, and we're going to talk about 2017 Mexico, 5 years. 5 years after. This is particularly exciting to me because as far as I know, I'm going to Mexico next month. I might not be going to Mexico, but as of right now, I'm going to Mexico. So I'm gonna maybe I'll wear the shirt that my wife got me for Mexico to that HFPod
Do
live for
it.
good luck. I'm gonna do it. We're gonna be back at 4:30 Eastern live next Wednesday, January 19th. And if you're listening as a podcast, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Before we officially depart, Jonathan, did you want to tell people about something?
Oh yeah, well, I want to remind everybody that we have some very good friends at Sunset Lake CBD. They are a farmer-owned business that ships CD. Good Lord. You guys should get me when I'm fresh to read these because this is so hard to do some days. All these letters run together. Sunset Lake CBD is a farmer-owned business that ships CBD products directly from their farm to your door. For years, Sunset Lake was a Vermont dairy farm producing milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. In 2018, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD. With product for everyone, they have pre-rolls, hemp cigars, hemp flowers, as well as tinctures, gummies, CBD coffee crafted to help with stress, aches, and pains. Sunset Lake CBD saves you money by shipping high-quality CBD products directly from their farm to your door. I have brought it up here before, but I have here in my desk my Sunset Lake hemp salve with arnica. I put it on my hands to ease my arthritic aches and pains. You can get that and more at sunsetlakecbd.com. Use the promo code HFPod for 20% off your purchase. That's sunsetlakecbd.com, promo code HFPod.
Incredible.
I really got that there after that. It's just like the way you enjoy myself. You just had to stop, start again. Nailed it.
Brian, we'll be back next week. Is there anything you want to say before we depart?
I just have a question for the group and for the audience. It may be open-ended. There may not be an answer. I don't know. Why isn't it Friday today?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good day.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good Friday.
See you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.